Hello and welcome. My name is Patty Murray and I will be your host for today's webinar, Workflow Optimization, Why Does Your Lab Need It? This webinar is being sponsored by Performance Solutions, which is part of bioMerieux. Performance Solutions provides a range of services for industrial microbiology control laboratories that are designed to improve lab performance with validation, laboratory monitoring, training and education, workflow optimization, and information technology solutions. Our moderator today is Helen Pack-Harvey, Director of Performance Solutions. Helen is focused on bringing to market a portfolio of services and capabilities to advance laboratory automation and excellence. In addition to workflow optimization, Performance Solutions for Industry offers laboratory monitoring and compliance solutions, training and education, and laboratory planning services. Our featured speaker is Mohammed Ahmed, a workflow optimization consultant with bioMerieux. Mohammed is a certified Lean Six Sigma Black Belt with an in-depth knowledge of microbiology, including lab instrumentation, and over 5 years of experience in applying Lean and Six Sigma methodology to achieve process and performance improvement. His area of expertise is Lean Enterprise and Six Sigma, Kaizen, Advanced Statistical Techniques, Business Process Management, Business Analysis, Project Management, and Facilitation skills. During the presentations, you can send in your questions using the chat and Q&A features. Now it is my great pleasure to turn things over to our moderator, Helen Pack-Harvey. Helen?
Thank you, Patty. During this 45-minute webinar, we will start off with a brief introduction of bioMerieux Performance Solutions. We will turn this then over to our workflow specialist, Mohammed Ahmed, who will take us through an introduction of workflow optimization and also share a case study for industry and wrap up with a couple of highlights on workflow services offered by bioMerieux. At the end of the presentation, we will open it up for Q&A, and we look forward to an interactive webinar with all the participants. So please feel free to submit your questions as well as comments at any time through the chat window. We will collect and discuss them at the end of the session. To start, bioMerieux Performance Solutions is a services organization within bioMerieux, which was formed with the objective of helping our customers achieve full microbiology lab automation through the combination of state-of-the-art technologies, process improvements, and personnel and laboratory staff excellence. Toward this end, Performance Solutions has developed a services portfolio for the laboratory, which includes workflow optimization, which you'll hear about today, training and education offered in various formats, e-learning, classroom, and on-site in topics and areas ranging from microbiology basics, accreditation, process methodology for the lab, as well as customized modules to meet specific client needs. With the recent acquisition of AES Cheminex, bioMerieux has now extended our offering with an automated 24/7 metrological solution for laboratory monitoring of physical parameters like temperature, humidity, and pressure. In addition to this, a set of validation packages and services are available to assist our customers ensure compliance to quality and regulatory requirements. And last but not least, lab space planning and design services, which can help you define the future laboratory and meet the needs for growth with technology assessments, capital planning, inventory management, financial simulations, and risk assessments. Now, I'd like to turn this over to our subject matter expert to focus our attention on workflow optimization. Mohammed?
Thank you very much. Thank you, Helen. Thank you, Patty. Let's start with our webinar topic for today is Introduction to Workflow Optimization. Let's first start with what is exactly workflow optimization. I know many of you might be wondering what exactly is the definition for workflow optimization and how does this fit into the process improvement. In very simple term, workflow optimization means the throughput plus how you allocate your resources in the laboratory. And the way throughput is defined is it is the movement of inputs and output through a production process. It is also a rate at which your system generates its services per unit of time. And again, resource allocation is a plan of using available resources, especially in the near term, to achieve goals for the future. A best example is human resources, how we allocate, the human resource factor in the laboratory to deal with the normal volatility that's seen on a normal basis in laboratories. Overall target is increased throughput plus optimized and balanced resource allocation. Your lab and workflow optimization. Now, as you all will agree, it is a multifaceted challenge that demands many diverse and sometimes conflicting needs to be fulfilled. Some of the areas, that really need improvement in laboratory environment that we have identified during our recent assessments. Number one is maximizing throughput, reducing the existing waste in laboratories. How can you save energy, shortening turnaround times, and then providing that report in an efficient and effective manner in less time to the customer, efficiently allocating laboratory staff and resources, quickly delivering analytical results, as well as timely reporting of relevant information. At the same time, we have to ensure that we are adhering to quality standards and regulatory compliances. Let's talk about the benefits of workflow optimization. Now, combining the innovative laboratory automation techniques with the breakthrough and proven techniques of lean management, what will be resulted is an increased efficiency that will be for sure seen after the implementation of our suggested solution, and increased quality, increased productivity, and increased labor utilization. At the same time, our customers have seen a reduced turnaround time, significantly reduced errors and waste, as well as reduced cost. A number one issue that we have seen during our assessment is laboratories dealing with the reduced, false positives and negatives. And that's the place where we were able to help them out so that the false positives and negatives were significantly reduced. In addition, outstanding customer satisfaction and market growth was achieved after implementing our suggested solutions. In the next two slides, I'm going to talk about the methodology that we use during our assessments. bioMérieux, the approach to workflow redesign is based on a powerful combination of two internationally recognized improvement tools, Lean and Six Sigma. Now, Lean, also known as Lean Production, Lean Enterprise, and Lean Thinking, it involves a set of principles, practices, and methods for designing, improving, and managing processes. The development of Lean is attributed to Taiichi Ohno's articulation of the Toyota production system. Ohno aimed to improve efficiency by eliminating particular kinds of waste, called muda in Japanese, which absorb time and resources but do not add value. So using this approach, or using the Lean methodology, the primary metric that we focus on is the time between the customer request and deliver the result by eliminating waste and constraints in the existing process. And this is where we identify the value stream, and then we work on significantly reducing the activities that do not add value in your process. A good example is to reduce movement of staff to and from workstation to the incubator. Overall, we pursue on continuous and incremental improvement using the Lean methodology. With Six Sigma, like Lean, is a business management strategy which is used to improve the quality and efficiency of operational processes. While Lean focuses on identifying ways to streamline process and reduce waste, Six Sigma aims predominantly to make processes more uniform and precise through the application of statistical methods. Six Sigma was originally developed by Bill Smith of Motorola in 1986 as a way of eliminating defects in manufacturing. But later on in the 1990s, with Six Sigma and Lean methodologies moving into the service industry, a lot of work has been recently done, and the process has been improved in hospitals, in microbiological laboratories, in insurance, in banks, and more. And the goal for Six Sigma is to continuously improve quality and reduce the process variation that exists. A good example is to reduce the auto-verification errors in your laboratory information system and ensuring that the repeatability and reproducibility of common tests. We also look on the existing variation that happens from a technician to the other technician and from one shift to the other shift. The Six Sigma improvement model, the DMAIC methodology, DMAIC is the methodology that's followed. Again, D stands for define, M for measure, A for analyze, I for improve, and C for control. Okay, let's talk about the 8 wastes that exist in the microbiology laboratory. Now, traditionally, waste has been viewed as an object. You know, in manufacturing side, industries, it was very easy to identify the waste because it was very tangible, like a scrap metal or plastic. Whereas in service industries, it's a bit difficult and challenging to identify these wastes. In lean thinking, the term waste doesn't really refer to physical material, but rather to the relationship of the resource to the sample. The number one defect that exists in the microbiology labs that we have noticed is defects. And by defect, I mean work that contains errors, reworks, mistakes, or lack of something that's necessary. A good example of defect is the wrong dilutions. It's very common in the microbiology environment. Overproduction, our next waste, is making more or earlier and or faster than is required by the next process. On number 3 is waiting, which is idle time created when material, information, people, or equipment are not ready. How many times, you know, we have noticed people, our technicians, analysts, just waiting for emails, or the technicians waiting for samples to be received in the lab from sample reception area. The next in line is non-utilized resources. A very good example that we have seen during our assessment is scientists and analyst level people washing dishes. You know, this is just the waste of not leveraging people's full talent and capabilities. The real work for these analysts is to do validations, but instead we are seeing them doing some other, unnecessary, unrequired work. Next in line is transportation, the movement of samples and materials that add no value. During our recent assessment, I noticed that the sample reception was almost like 20 feet from, 20 meters away from the microbiology lab. And every time the samples were received, they were physically transported to the laboratory, just, taking so much resources, taking the analyst time, the lab technician's time, which could have been significantly reduced and eliminated from the process if the sample reception area would have been closely attached to the microbiology lab. The next is inventory, any supplies in excess of what is required. And then motion of people, motion of machines. This is the extra motion in lab. And then this is also the extra motion that happens in the working area at the workstation level. Our staff just spend time looking for things if the equipment are not organized properly. And the last waste that we really work on identifying is the excess processing that happens on a regular basis. This is the additional effort that adds no value to the product or service from the customer's viewpoint. Let's talk about the value proposition, the typical Lean Six Sigma benefits that can be achieved. The streamlined workload. We work on decreasing the pre-analytical turnaround time. And again, that varies, it depends on many factors, but it usually varies from 50 to 90%. There's a decreased, significantly reduction in the manual errors that happen on a day-to-day basis by 50 to 90%. And then there's decreased cross-contaminations that can be significantly reduced as well. Overall, there's a decreased, in cost. At the same time, our customers have seen increased productivity. And this is all, using a thorough focus on laboratory as well as utilizing the powerful combination tools and techniques of internationally recognized improvement tools, which are Lean and Six Sigma that I have already talked about, that we achieve all these benefits. Here's a very good slide that I want to share with you about the Lean Lab Audit deliverables. For sure, our customers have seen reduced overproduction, a standardized process in place. We also work on maximizing the automation, at the same time working on reducing the errors and improving the turnaround time. This will result in an increased throughput, improved customer satisfaction, and in the end, a continuous improvement culture and environment is developed. The pre-work usually begins 2 to 4 weeks in advance. In the next couple slides, I will be sharing with you so please take some time to answer this polling question that you all are seeing right now. Moving ahead, I will be discussing a case study that we recently did, and this case study is based in, the company was based in Southeast USA. Company manufactures food products in the United States and internationally, and they specialize in poultry products. Now, when we went in, the assessment scope that was identified, we really focused on the sample flow from the time the samples were received to the time the report is sent out to the external customer. We also focused and added to our scope on to build a roadmap for significant transformational improvement according to the laboratory specificities and their needs. The main objectives were to connect to their LIMS system, increase efficiency and effectiveness in the laboratory, focus on accuracy of results, and also the 100% of samples that were run, they were run on one of our instrumentation called Tempo. Like I had previously mentioned, there's some pre-analysis data that is required and collected before the actual assessment. Here's some background information on the data that was collected. Now, once that data is received, we do some data analysis, and these are the results of the data analysis. The type and number of samples, sample arrival time, type of microorganisms, as well as type of tests are taken into consideration. The number and distribution of tests, the staff allocation, how is the staff allocated on a day-to-day basis, on a weekly basis. At the same time, we also collect, the lab organization, the lab opening time, the lab working times, things like that. And these are very, very necessary and critical because there are some metrics that are calculated based on these information. A category of the different tests that were done in lab was identified. As you can see from this pie chart over here, about 50% of the laboratory samples were TVC, the total variable count. And then there were additional, like 20% were Listeria tests, 8% Salmonella tests. So that's how we kind of categorize the different tests that are done in the lab. At the same time, the day we went in and we started our assessment, we created all these observation points in the laboratory, and then we identified them, we labeled them starting from A to Z. The specs is where we had created the observation points, and this is where we collected like snapshot data. And this snapshot data was collected around the following, either there's some technical processing going on at that time, whether there's some administrative work happening, some movement, any kind of walking that was taking place during that observation snapshot was taken into consideration. And then there were other tasks that were recorded as well. A good description have been already provided here, what it means by technical task, administrative task, what exactly movement means, what's the difference between movement and walking. Now, once we collected the snapshot data, we analyzed that data, and this is the graph that was the result of the snapshot activity. As you all can see from this graph, the number one activity happening in that lab was the other activity, followed by administration, followed by technical, and then movement and walking. In an ideal condition, the technical bar graph should be the number one graph, where the technical task should be happening a lot compared to other activities and administration, but that wasn't the case. So there was an area identified for opportunity. We also did some workload distribution data based on processing steps, and it was identified that 50% or almost 51% of the staff time was spent preparing the samples that were received in the laboratory. Now, once these things were identified, we went ahead and we started working on the motion and the flow of samples. We used the spaghetti diagram, which is a very good lean tool. Once the main purpose of using this tool is to identify how much movement is happening in the lab. As you can see with all that, in a very small area, you see how much movement was happening. We also did some data analysis on the capacity versus workload assessment, and some areas were identified where the staff can be, reallocated in order to meet the volatility in the receiving samples. As you can see, the circles, those are where the opportunities were identified. Now, the big circle, during the hours of 6 to 7 in the morning, early morning hours, that's the time when the staff, was required to do that additional amount of sample preparation. So we suggested to move part of the sample preparation in between the hours to 7 to 9. And that way, that extra capacity that was required was significantly reduced. We also suggested and recommended a revised workflow. Now, as you can see from this revised spaghetti diagram, how much motion has been reduced. We recommended the laboratory staff, the management, to move few of their instruments in the right order so that the motion is significantly reduced. I just want to take you back to the previous slide where you see a lot of movement happening. See how much motion was happening, and then this is what we recommended. Much organized, much less waste in motion. The turnaround time was decreased as well. Now, with 5S, we also noticed, with 5S really means workplace organization. And it is a method for organizing and standardizing the location of materials, information, and equipment to optimize flow and to help understand when something is out of place or missing. It really helps to identify and remove what is not needed from the workplace to achieve a given task. Now, this also allowed management and staff to quickly determine when something is out of place and if a problem existed. Now, when we work on 5S, there are basically 5 things that we look into. The 5S stand for sort, set, shine, standardize, and sustain. And pictures really speak for themselves. As you can see, like there's a before picture, how the laboratory looked before, and there's a picture of after we did the 5S improvement. In conclusion, the improvement elements around staff allocation, the turnaround time was improved. There was less work in process after the suggested short-term implementation, and also an increased motivation was noticed in the staff and employees. As far as process flow, there was reduction in non-value added tasks. The laboratory layout, there was less movement with smaller batches. And then we also recommended some changes to the laboratory information system. You know, we noticed some non-value added tasks that were existing in their LIS system, and that once the solution was implemented, it improved quality as well as service. Quantitatively, you know, the total technician hours that can be saved after our suggested solutions are implemented, there's like 39 hours per week that can be saved. Around 36% of productivity improvement can be gained. The number of increased tests, that like 38 more tests can be done per hour. At the same time, 16 more samples can be done per hour. This decreases lab operating time with existing resources. Okay, bioMérieux, you know, these are our workflow services. We really work on streamlining the process. We enhance productivity. We improve the turnaround time, improve quality, improve and reduce cost. The way we do this is we offer tailor-made and innovative solutions, and we use a proven combination of lean management techniques. Here are the workflow services that are offered by bioMérieux. We have the microbiology lab, which is like implementation and workflow optimization audit. We have a detailed workflow assessment, as well as a lean awareness training program in place. We do rapid improvement projects ranging from Kaizens to 5S projects, and we also work on lab design and workflow optimization. Any questions?
So this concludes the presentation part of the webinar. We would now like to open it up for questions and answers. I have a couple of questions that came in. First question is, after your assessment, does bioMérieux come back and help laboratories implement these suggested solutions?
Very good question. Yes, we do. The way we do it is like I already mentioned, we have a rapid improvement, you know, Kaizen team in place that, you know, once we suggest the solutions and the customer buys the Kaizen, we go in, we do the follow-up, we work with the team in the laboratory, and we help them do this rapid improvement via Kaizens. And the Kaizens can be for process improvement as well as for 5S.
Okay, the next question. Normally, what kind of recommendations do you suggest after an assessment is completed?
That can vary anywhere from a short-term solution to a long-term solution. Now, short-term solution is, you know, the things that can be implemented immediately after we do the assessment. Like the laboratory management doesn't really require much resources or anything, you know, minor changes here and there, and they can immediately start seeing the results. The long-term solution is when we recommend, moving the equipment, and then a little bit more resources are required. That's where we really go, when we go in and we work on Kaizens, we form the team, and we do these rapid improvements. Any other questions?
Yes, next question. What are the common issues that you notice in a micro lab during an assessment?
Very good question. Yes, we do notice many issues, but the very common ones that we see or observe during the assessments and we identify opportunities around are the variation in incoming workload. We see that there are spikes during this day of time and during the days of week when there are spikes in the way the samples are received. We also noticed, high queues and high volumes of work in process. We have seen just samples sitting on workstations waiting to be tested or waiting for the next process in line. We have also seen some significant effort in controlling, tracking, and prioritizing samples. In some labs, the analyst roles were not optimized or balanced, and there was some lack of defined sequence. And then another common thing noticed in almost every lab that we do the assessment is a lot of non-value added activities going on, that can be significantly reduced or eliminated from their process. Another thing is the long turnaround times, and in some labs we have seen low productivity as well that we have worked around.
Okay. Next question is, during the lab assessment, which improvement methodology do you use most? Is it Lean or is it Six Sigma?
Well, it really depends on the issue that we notice during the observation, during the assessment in the laboratory. And again, once this issue is identified, if this issue is directly correlated to the turnaround time, then Lean is a better approach. We use Lean techniques to reduce the turnaround time. And then sometimes we use Six Sigma methodology when we see a lot of defects and errors that are happening in the lab. So we really work on both, but it really depends on the observation and the activities that happen during the assessment in a particular laboratory.
Okay, thank you. We have one more question, and I may be able to address this one. This is from, the question is regarding if this service is available in French, and the answer is yes, we can make this available for our French-speaking customers and have workflow consultants that can deliver the service in French as well. And I think that's all the questions that we received, Patty. I'd like to, before we wrap up this webinar, I'd like to ask the speaker to share with the audience kind of one parting thought. There's a takeaway message from this session. Mohammed, what would it be?
Well, that would be, I really believe it is the careful adaptation of Lean and Six Sigma techniques based on a thorough understanding of lab process that will deliver significant benefits. But at the same time, it is also important to point out that the correct implementation of these solutions, both, like short-term and long-term, in addition to a commitment from continuous improvement, is very, very critical for the laboratory as well as the organization to sustain these benefits.
Thank you very much. We have no more questions. Patty?
Oh, thanks, Helen, and thanks, Mohammed. I do want to take this opportunity to thank all the attendees for participating in the event, especially the poll question, and give you the responses that we received and get your reactions to them. The first question was, how would you rate the current workflow efficiency in your laboratory? Nobody said poor or excellent, but we have 67% saying not too bad but needs improvement, and the remaining 33% saying pretty good, not perfect. So what is your reaction to those results?
Sorry, Can you please repeat the question?
Yes, in response to the first poll question, how would you rate the current workflow efficiency in your laboratory? Nobody said poor or excellent, but we had 67% saying not too bad but needs improvement, and 33% saying pretty good, not perfect. Is that typical of the responses that you get?
Yes, it's very typical and very common for a microbiology laboratory. Again, we do so much analysis, and when we do the data analysis, with Six Sigma, the whole goal is for a laboratory to reach the Six Sigma level. But what we have noticed is a typical microbiology laboratory stands somewhere in between 2 and 3 Sigma level. But when we do the assessment, we suggest the solutions and improvement, they reach up to at least 5 Sigma level. So it's just very typical and common. So.
And in response to the second poll question, where do you see the benefit of workflow optimization in your laboratory? We had pretty much answers across the board. 47% said to save money, 73% said to save time, 87%, the most, said to improve efficiency, 23% said to free up lab techs for higher level tasks, and 53% said to ensure customer satisfaction. Again, are there any surprises there, or is that what you typically hear?
No, it's very typical, very common. Turnaround time and efficiency is the #1 thing on the management list, and that's where we really help them out to identify the opportunities and work with them, in collaboration to implement the solution as well as sustain and monitor these with some good metrics. So it's very typical again. Yeah.
Okay, great. And that concludes our event. Again, thank you to everybody for participating and for sending in your questions and participating in the poll questions. Helen, Mohammed, thank you so much for your time today. Their contact information is on your screen and has been for some time now. So if you think of any questions later today, tomorrow, next week, feel free to reach out to them directly. And if there were any questions that came in and we were not able to address them during the live event, we will get back to you after this webinar concludes. And I also want to make note that an archive of the webinar will be available on biomerieux.com, and if anybody wants to get a copy of the slides, they can reach out to me at patty@murraypublicrelations.com. And with that, that concludes today's event. Thank you for attending, and have a great day.